Good evening. Welcome to Entertainment Spectrum. I'll get it out here in a minute. I'm Del Gibson, and with me tonight is Erwin K. Roberts, who has got some very interesting film for us tonight, and also some very interesting interviews with the people that made Full Metal Jacket, the new movie that's making all the big headlines at the theaters right now. Bob, won't you, or Erwin, just give us a little background on this interview.
All right, this is a press luncheon for Lee Ermey. It looks like it's spelled Emery, but it's Ermey. He's a fellow from not too far into Kansas. He was a real honest-to-God Marine Corps drill instructor, also a combat veteran of Vietnam, and served as technical advisor on Full Metal Jacket. And he was in town talking about the movie, and about a dozen of us from the media were invited to that luncheon down at a Plaza Hotel, and the lunch was delicious, thank you. And he talked with us, and then later on he talked with me individually. And we're going to start out with a little one-on-one. You won't see me because we're going to concentrate on our guest, Lee Ermey, actor and real-life drill sergeant, as he talks about Full Metal Jacket. I'm Erwin K. Roberts, and we're here with Lee Ermey, one of the stars of Full Metal Jacket. And I even heard somebody mention Oscar and your name in the same sentence yesterday.
Boy,
Yeah.
I've heard it a few times. I don't know.
And he played the evil drill instructor, well, semi-evil drill instructor in Full Metal Jacket. And how much of the drill instructor was you, and how much was made up?
Well, about 0% was me. A lot of it was characters that I hadn't met before on the drill field. There were few and far between, but the occasional character, plus the book. There was this gunnery sergeant was in a book, Gustav Hasford's novel, and I wanted desperately to capture his character.
Now, for the benefit of those who aren't aware of it, you were a Marine Corps drill instructor and a combat veteran, so you know whereof you speak in this matter.
I like to think so. I really do.
Oh, what did Stanley Kubrick really want to get out of this film for the people to walk away from the theater with?
He wanted the realism from recruit training. One thing, number one, okay? Start from the start of the beginning of the film and work our way back. But first of all, in the recruit training portion, something that I've dearly wanted to do ever since the first time I stepped in front of a camera in 1974 was to show the public what the United States Marine Corps recruit training back in 1964, 65, and 66 were really like, okay? And Stanley wanted the same thing. So we came to a very happy compromise. It was going to be real. And he wanted the realism of the Vietnam. He wanted to feel. He wanted to put on film what happened to young men when they got involved in the Vietnam War and in this conflict. What happened to their personalities when they got in Vietnam? And I think overall and very basically he wanted to show the public that war is hell. And I think he does a very good job of that.
I'll agree with that. Was it common for Marines to keep their basic training nicknames as they progressed through their career?
Oh, yeah, you figure, say for instance, okay, I'm the drill instructor, I've got a platoon of 120 privates, I graduate those privates. Now, 5 or 6 of these privates are going to go to this unit, maybe a dozen to this unit. It just depends on how many people are needed in what units in Vietnam, okay? So a lot of these people are going to end up together. Now, when one of these privates runs across another private a year later that's now corporals and sergeants or whatever, Hartman's kind of he's a real character. Drill instructors, they verbally, I would say probably 50% of the drill instructors on the Marine Corps Recruit Depot were verbally that harsh. As far as physical goes, first of all, please let me stress this. The United States Marine Corps never has, nor will it ever, condone maltreatment, physical abuse, or verbal abuse of its trainees or privates. That was strictly the drill instructor that got out of hand, okay? Now I won't justify the drill instructor getting out of hand, but it might help if I enlighten how maybe he might have possibly got out of hand. Recruit training was cut down from 12 weeks to 8 weeks, which threw the drill instructor into an accelerated mode of training, 100 hours a week. That's what we're looking at as far as the drill instructor's work week. Platoons doubled in size from 60 during peacetime to 120 privates during this big push to get people graduated so they could go to Vietnam and fight the war. Number 3 was the fact that this drill instructor knew that this private or this recruit was not going just merely out to integrate into the peacetime Marine Corps. He was in fact going to Vietnam to fight the war. All right. So drill instructors were under a tremendous amount of stress. When I was a drill instructor at the depot, I would bring to bear on each and every private as much severe mental strain as I could possibly bring to bear on them, okay? And the reason being is I would rather have them lose their grip on reality here in Marine Corps recruit training, San Diego or Paris Island, whichever the case may be, where we had facilities to help these people right away, rather than being nice to the kid and have him get over in Vietnam and be involved in a combat situation where he's under fire, which is tenfold the mental stress and strain that any one individual drill instructor could ever even start to think about bringing down a private. But if he got to Vietnam and cracked up, if he got there and lost his grip on reality, he could take other people with him. I mean, you have to depend on this individual in Vietnam. And if he couldn't make it through recruit training, the stress and strain there, I didn't want him fighting beside any troops in Vietnam. So I hope that kind of sums it up and gives you an idea of what the drill instructor was up against at that era.
Mm-hmm. And on top of everything else, I understand that you're writing a book now.
Well, by golly, how about that? Yeah, I am, as a matter of fact. I wasn't aware that it was known, but yes, I'm into a novel right now.
I take it it's not about the local garden club either.
Well, no, it's not about the Ladies' Aid. It's about the United States Marine Corps, and I've got a good story, and there's a lot of realism, and there's some most of the scenes that I have in the book are real. It's a good Marine Corps thing. I'm about over 200 pages into it now, and if I ever get off this tour, I'm going to finish it and have a book.
This has been a 40 cities in 4 days tour or something?
Something like that, I'll tell you.
So, well, I understand that you have to get on to various and sundry other interviews, and you're probably going to put in a 100-hour week this week as well.
No problem, I'm used to it.
All right, hardcore, right?
Well, it's tough working for Warner Brothers.
Okay.
They're good people, but
not as hard as working for the Marine Corps, though. Okay, well, thank you, Gunny, and we will be seeing you back on Kansas City Alive, or Entertainment Spectrum, whichever gets this tape first.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
He was quite an interesting character. I can see him in a drill instructor's uniform. He looks the part, as well as, probably that's the reason he got the part, because he looked it.
Yeah, he looked the part and he lived it. And believe me, anybody who's heard stories about Marine Corps boot in the 60s or earlier will appreciate this movie. And half the audience that I saw it with had no idea what was coming, and they were just totally shocked, not only at the moderate physical abuse heaped on the recruits by this character, but just by the verbal abuse, which is relatively universal among the services, but the Marines play a lot more mind games than most of the rest of the services. Before I forget it, we would like to thank Vince Kaler, my cameraman, and Hewlett and Oliver, who supplied post-production facilities for this. Otherwise, we would not have this show tonight, and you and I would be sitting here talking about a book
nothing,
or something.
Yeah.
We have some more footage that we'll come to in a minute of the luncheon. But the gentleman, he barely got a bite to eat at this luncheon. There were about a dozen of us, and every time he'd get a fork about halfway up to his mouth, somebody would hit him with another question. He was very conscientious about answering them.
I could imagine, of course, not having been on a tour like this, but I imagine they probably don't even know what city they're in sometimes. They hit so many cities so fast.
Well, he insisted they add Kansas City to this tour because it was next door to home for him.
That's right, he is from Kansas. So.
And as a matter of fact, he was sort of controlling the tour. We may get a chance to see in this later footage him talking about his favorite scene, which is where he finds a jelly donut hidden in the footlocker of one of the privates. And he says that's his favorite scene in the movie. And it was not on the real eclipse it was being circulated. He talked about it so much in the early parts of the tour.
They put it back in?
They sent another cassette out, and I didn't get one, but some of the other people in town did get showing the jelly donut scene to use with this guy's tour footage.
Okay, now this the other footage we got coming up, is that the actual movie or is this just an interview?
This is, well, it's, I guess you could, more like a press conference. There were a bunch of us seated around a table. Most of the footage takes place before the food arrived. We'd all ordered, and we're just talking. But once the food arrived, the press took turns chowing down, and he barely got a bite of his Creole snapper.
Okay, well, the rest of this show is going to be about this film of this press conference, and we've got so much film that we're just going to run right on through the show, and when the show ends, they'll just run the credits over it. So for Erwin K. Roberts and myself, thank you, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Good night.
I worked on Apocalypse Now. It was a very minor little bit part that I had in Apocalypse Now. Boys and Company C, Sidney J. Fury. I went over there as technical advisor and had a major role in the film. Purple Hearts, Cheryl Ladd and Ken Wall. That was also directed by Sidney J. Fury, and I wore the two hats. I was the technical advisor, plus I had a major role in that. Then all of a sudden, Stanley Kubrick decided to call me up and use me in his. You know, ever since the first time I stepped in front of the camera, I've had this desire, this burning desire to show people, everybody, everywhere, what went down in Marine Corps recruit training during the era of 1965, 66, and 67. And I wanted to do it right. I was afraid, well, the Marine Corps might feel offended if I did actually allow the abuse to go on that did go on, but it's true. And the Marine Corps is big about it, I'm sure, and they realize after, there were quite a few court-martials on record for abuse, physical abuse, and this and that. First of all, I do want to make it quite clear that the United States Marine Corps never has, nor will it ever condone physical or verbal abuse of its privates, its trainees, and certainly not in this day and age. But if I might kind of elaborate, I think I can not justify, but explain or reason for the public why this might have happened back in 65, 66, and 67. Would you mind if I elaborate a little bit?
Because there's no question, Bob Butler, who's the...
Certainly hope that you've all had a chance to see the film, so that you'll know what to expect from it. All right?
You look a lot different.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that uniform, and when you're looking out from below the brim of that Smokey Bear hat, it's very intimidating. Any young recruit can tell you that, or any young Marine that's been through recruit training can tell you that that's the most intimidating thing in the world, is those hard eyes looking out from underneath the brim of that Smokey Bear. I guess what I need to do is give you a brief little rundown history, and then we'll go and start asking questions. I think that'd be the best way to do it. Okay. I am from Kansas, by the way. I was born in Emporia, Kansas. in 1944, and was there for a short while. Come from good Kansas farm stock, by the way, and was there for a short while before my father migrated up this way, and we ended up in between Bonner Springs and Edwardsville. If anybody knows where that is. Matter of fact, our address back in those days was 10448 State Avenue. All right. Now I don't think there is a 10448 State Avenue any longer because I've driven up and down that. I can't find the old farm. It was about a 20-acre farm that we had there, and it's disappeared. I don't know where it's at, but anyway. So I am from Kansas. About 10 years old, migrated to Washington State. And I stayed in Washington State, lived there with my family until I was 17 years old, at which time the judge looked down at me and said, "Son, you're going to have to do something about this. This is the third time I've seen you last year. You can either go in the military, the armed forces of America, or you can go under my direction where I'm going to send you." And I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Military. I'll join the Navy right away this afternoon." And I was just 17. The job in the Marine Corps is to look and seek out the finest Marine NCOs that the Marine Corps has to offer, to train to be drill instructors. So I went to DI school, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the toughest damn school the Marine Corps has got to offer. We might think that boot camp is tough, which I considered boot camp pretty darn tough in 1961 when I went through it. But when I went through DI school in 1965, I was having second thoughts as to which was the toughest. That's the old run 7 miles before breakfast in the morning school, okay? We started out with a class of something like 98 NCOs, and we ended up with, we graduated about 45 of that 98. And the rest honorably were filtered back into the Marine Corps. The drill instructors strike a private, there were several instances in the film, and I'm technical advisor, and I'm sitting here telling you, no, we don't do it. And then we do it in the film, and I'm sitting here trying to tell you it's a very realistic film. It is absolutely realistic, and I can probably... There was a regulation against any kind of maltreatment or hazing or abuse of the privates. The Marine Corps doesn't condone it. However, the state says that you'll go 65 miles an hour when you drive on its freeways. Okay? Does that answer the question? It's the individual drill instructor. It's not the Marine Corps. It's the individual drill instructor that sometimes becomes frustrated and might physically abuse a private or a trainee. Now, I'm not going to try to justify it. I'll tell you why this might have to 8 weeks. Okay? Now, it was 12 weeks during peacetime. We've got a wartime situation on our hands now, and it's cut down to 8 weeks. The drill instructors were pushed into an accelerated mode of not only did he work 100 hours, this drill instructor, when he picked up a platoon out of receiving barracks 2 years ago or a year ago, it was 60 to 80 people strong, 80 privates maybe. Today, 1967, when he picks up that same recruit platoon, it's all of a sudden, this platoon got huge on him. It's 120 privates, okay? So he got twice as many people to train in a third less time, and not to go into peacetime Marine Corps, but to go to combat in Vietnam, okay? Not an easy job. So occasionally, we had a Hartman come along, okay? And that's what this character is based on, okay? Let me say this. Drill instructor is trying to train privates. He's got 120 privates. He's got one private here that screwed up 3 times. He's seen him out of the corner of his eye, which a drill instructor misses nothing. Somebody in the platoon screws up, he spots that somebody. He sees him. he catches this guy for the third time screwing up. Now, he should have corrected this private the first time he screwed up. He should never have ever allowed him to screw up the second time. And now he's up to the third time. Something's got to be done. So, what is he supposed to do? He's sitting there saying, what in the hell am I to do now? Come here, Private Johnson. What the hell's wrong with you? I seen that. Scratching your ass. What's wrong? Looking around the area. I don't have your attention, do I? Jump down and give me 25 push-ups. The options are, the drill instructor figures I can give me 25 push-ups, stand here over this private for 15 minutes, and make sure that he gives me 25 correct, perfect, picture-perfect push-ups. Or, now when I'm doing this, when I'm standing over this private, that means that I'm neglecting 120 other privates, which need my help, the drill instructor's help. And it's a little easier just to walk by old Private Johnson and give him a little shot in the solar plexus, and he's lost his breath a little bit. There's been no permanent injuries done, but Private Johnson just got a spanking. All right. The drill instructor didn't enjoy this any more than the next guy, but it took him a second to walk by and just give him a little shot in the solar plexus. Johnson learns fast because of this, because of the pain. The drill instructor goes on and teaches his privates what has to be taught in that 15 minutes rather than waste it standing over Private Johnson. Like I say, I'm not trying to justify something that a drill instructor occasionally used back in those days. I'm just trying to tell you, let you know why it might have happened that way. Tonight, I'll tell you one thing. The train has changed tremendously. It's changed tremendously. But talking with the drill instructors and watching and looking at Mark Passage with reviewing stand to go graduate, I'll tell you what, I think the Corps is not lacking training. We're back up to 12 weeks, by the way. The big push is over, right? Treatment to speak of anymore. I would imagine there's the occasional situation that crops up. Okay? When you've got a couple hundred people doing a job, it's out of a couple hundred people, it's not too hard to find one or two. This drill instructor has got to be entertaining to the point where he can hold every private's attention in the platoon. And how does he do it? A good drill instructor is a good actor. He's got wit, he's got finesse, he dances up in front of the privates, and he entertains the privates. And the privates being entertained, pay attention to him. It's like, let's take for instance the Lee Harvey Oswald scene that we have on the film. Now, this drill instructor, and any drill instructor in his right mind, has no use at all for Lee Harvey Oswald or James Whitman or Charles Whitman. No, there's no way that this drill instructor respects him. However, it's a shock tactic that we found very effective back in those times when we didn't have time to go back and go over it. So, in order for me to teach you and for you to retain everything that I've said, I don't want you to retain 60% or 40% or like they do in college, something like 10%. I want you to remember 100% of everything that I've said. And so the drill instructor used what is called, what I deem, shock tactics back in those days. Lee Harvey Oswald. That's shock tactics. And before you leave my island, ladies, you will all be able to do the same thing. And that's shocking, isn't it? I'll tell you how effective it is. A guy named Gustav Hasford remembered this speech from his boot camp days, which were something like 20 years ago, almost word for word, and wrote a book about it. Okay? Now that's effective, gentlemen. All right? For that. My favorite line, by the way, gentlemen, in the Hartman role, in my character, is, if there's one thing in this world that I hate, it's an unlocked footlocker. And you know that, don't you, Private Pyatt? And to me, that's, everybody's sitting there saying, geez, man, this guy hates unlocked footlockers. Damn.
I think there was humor in it too, but I think for me that the mood switched immediately when you hit private joker and stuff. I was laughing up until that point, and then
I wasn't trying to be entertaining for you folks. I was being entertaining for the private. Okay? And the mood would change, wouldn't it, after I hit somebody? You know, a drill instructor could walk up, back in those days, a drill instructor could walk up to a private and lay such a barrage of verbal abuse on the private, and then give him just a little bitty bunch like that. Everybody within hearing distance would swear that you have just mauled this private down here. And the private himself will write home to mom and dad and his buddies that he got mauled today, beaten. He was severely beaten by his drill instructor. And the verbal abuse, or the verbal harassment, or whatever you want to call it, the intimidation that goes along with that little slight slap. I mean, you could just walk up and slap him like that all day long and he'd sit there and smile at you, right? But accompanied with the intimidation that flows out of the drill instructor's filthy sewer, he honestly believes in his own mind that he was severely beaten by that drill instructor. Okay? Now, I had something else I wanted to say, and damn, tapes really seem to get upset when drill instructors severely train their sons, okay, back in those days, which is understandable because little Johnny's been protected all his life. The most dear thing in mom and dad's life is Johnny, right? So when Johnny goes to boot camp and right away, his drill instructor got mad at him for no reason at all, apparently, and called him a dirty name. I mean, you know, mom and daddy really did have a tendency to get upset. When I was on the drill field in 1965, 66, and 7, my objective, one of my main objectives, was to be as severe on privates as I possibly could. One of the reasons was because only the 8 weeks. I've only got 8 weeks now. But I wanted to be so mentally overbearing on these privates. I mean, when I come up to a private, I would work on him mentally. I would come down on him with every bit or every ounce of force that I possibly could bring to bear on him mentally. And if he lost his grip on reality, good. Because I got it out of him there, rather than wait. And we got facilities to take care of him here. But if I wouldn't have got him here in recruit training, then he would have gone to Vietnam and faced combat in Vietnam, and he'd have been in a firefight where 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 other Marines depended on him to carry his share of the load. And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, a firefight in combat is 10 times or 20 times the stress, that the pressure and stress that any one individual drill instructor could ever bring to bear on Johnny. Okay? Now, instructor, it's damn if you do, damn if you don't, is the situation they fall in. Okay? Now, I'll answer your question.
Okay. What was the most difficult scene for you?
Oh, the most difficult scene
Because
for
you
me?
seem to have a thing about Vietnam. You didn't want to talk about Vietnam, and by the fact that this is a movie about Vietnam, and what was
It's
the
a
most...
fantasy for me, okay? I put myself into it. When I'm doing this, okay, let me tell you, when I'm hired on a film as technical advisor, I have a little black book, and in this little black book, there are the names and phone numbers of about 50 Vietnam veterans, Marine Corps Vietnam veterans. I'm not hired as a technical advisor. I go over as a representative technical advisor, but believe me, I burn up those phone lines. I call these guys and I describe the scene, tell them what I'm uncomfortable about in the scene, and ask them to, what would you say, Bob? What would you do in this situation? Over on Hill 327 or over on Hill 350, how would you have handled this problem?